Are you getting ready to PCS to San Diego and you're wondering the questions that we all have? Should you buy a home? If you are going to buy a home, where the heck should you live? How bad's the traffic to get to that home? And all the other concerns that are probably running through your mind right now. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know when it comes to if you should even buy a home when coming to San Diego. And if you make that decision to buy, what the heck can you even get into? And how should you go about that to make sure you have the least stress possible and that you don't buy a home or condo or whatever that's going to end up bankrupting you when you leave in the future. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge. On this channel, I talk about everything you need to know when PCSing to and from San Diego, California. I absolutely love it. I drop videos for you every single week, helping you as a fellow veteran to get all that information you need when it comes to getting real estate here in San Diego, and I absolutely love it. Also, just tips and tricks about just making that move entirely and using your VA loan, or even if you don't want to use your VA loan and you're just a veteran looking to do something in this city. Also, I'm a licensed real estate agent, and this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me. Call, text, email, or if you want to jump to that head of the line, go ahead and schedule a Zoom call down below. You're going to be talking with me directly. We can help create that plan to help you get to and from this great city. And I know it might be crazy to some of you who are moving here and you're like, there's no way the city is that great. I promise you, if you make the right decisions, even if you aren't looking to stay here, we can make sure that you leave with more money in your pocket and more happiness in your heart when you go to leave. And that's a promise I can definitely make. So getting into the video, obviously, this whole video is going to be about buying a home when you're PCS to San Diego, but the first thing I want to address is, should you even do it? Because even before you get into the process of buying a home when PCSing to this city or county or wherever whether you're in Pendleton, 32nd Street, Coronado, doesn't really matter. Wherever you're getting, or Miramar, wherever you're getting stationed, I promise you the first thing you need to deal with is like, should you even get into real estate here in San Diego? So BAH has obviously seen a major increase heading into 2023, and that's great. But it's still an issue a lot. I have another meeting with 2 veterans today about this issue. It's like, should we even do it? And there's a lot of things to weigh in. Most of you, if you're just coming here, you're probably looking at least 3-year orders, right? For some of us, I was here for 4 years in San Diego before I chose to get out of the Marine Corps and live with my family, outside the military. But it's common to have at least 4 years, especially if you're in the Navy, 4-year rotation, right? Like you're like, hey, I might have deployments and debts, but I'm going to be here in San Diego as my main home for 4 years, okay? San Diego is a city when it comes to buying real estate where if you're owning for 4 years plus, no matter what happens in the market, if you're paying on time, you're probably going to end up okay. Every situation is different. That's why it's so important that you reach out to someone like ourselves, because I've been thrown into a bad situation where I lost about $4,000 on the first house I bought and sold in San Diego. It was before I really got involved in real estate. It was before I really knew better. I was in the Marine Corps, and honestly, I didn't get told half the things I should have known. And I ended up losing money when I bought and sold that house within a couple years because I didn't know. Looking back, someone should have convinced me to keep that house. But hey, that's okay. We all live and learn. Now, should you do it? If you're someone who is probably looking at less than that time frame, it still could be smart to buy. Right? Even if you're like, hey, I'm only gonna be here for a couple years, it could still be smart. You just have to look at it from a different lens. But for most of you who are looking at that full 4 years plus, I can tell you more often than not, if with the right purchase fitting your budget, you'll be okay. But again, there's still a different level of stress to it. Now, a lot of you love to push you to base housing. Navy base housing fluctuates a lot throughout the year. I can tell you lately, I've heard from on-base officials that they're like at least for the Navy, they're at 98% capacity. That's crazy. Base housing is always packed, and there's always a wait list. Heck, one of the sailors I had last year, he was living out of his car when I got put in touch with him, and his wife wasn't even in the same state. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Well, we got on base housing, and we got another 4 months until it's an option. I'm like, dude, what the heck? He's living on the ship. He's staying in his car. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So we sat down, we ran the numbers, and at the end of the day, it made sense for them to buy a condo. Figured it out, and literally within 60 days later, a little bit less than 60 days, about 50, they were in a condo. His wife was here. They had their 2 dogs. They were finally together living their best life. And that's the thing where a lot of people have to get into is like, hey, sometimes you can't even get into base housing. Not to mention, you're just giving up all your BAH to pay a company that we all know, Lincoln Housing. Come on, they're terrible. But hey, obviously, then it comes in rent in town. Rent in San Diego has gone bananas. I'm sure you're looking at housing prices, and they're not any better. totally agree. This is not a cheap city. And I talk to veterans every day who's trying to get into a better situation. But look, rents are high and mortgage is high. Personally, in the short term, I'll be honest with you. You're probably going to spend a couple hundred more per month, whether you rent or buy. They're going to be the same in the short term. It's the long term of building that equity and the appreciation in the home that's going to do that. But also, I'll be honest with you, it gives you options. Like I said, you go on a deployment and your spouse wants to go back home to a different state. Hey, we all know the game, right? She wants to travel back and forth. You can now rent out rooms or the entire place that you own because you have that option. When you rent, you can't do that. You're breaking your lease, and sure, that might be great. But then you lose you don't have any equity you're building. And so that's the conversation people have to get into. Like I said, it comes down really to how long you're staying here. But even if you're staying for only a couple years, it can still work out. You just have to make sure you adjust your plan and budget to make sense for what you're trying to do. And me and my team are here to kind of work through that. We've done it ourselves. We've invested in real estate as well. Like, we understand the ins and outs of what makes your life hectic being a service member in today's world. Now, for those of you who, have a family and things like that, obviously it gets a little hard. I get that. And that's another conversation to have. It's like, hey, can I even be near a good school district? Because I don't want to have to buy a place and my budget forces me to be in a place that I don't want my kids going to school. I get that. Having 3 boys myself, it is so important to make sure you do that. And that's part of the conversation as well. And honestly, all of it can be stressful. And that's why even if you reach out to us, like, there's no pressure. Like, honestly, like, you have no idea how many veterans I say, hey, you probably shouldn't, right? Now, for those of you that might have bad credit or some debt situations, again, the only reason to make it better is to start. Start figuring out how to budget your money, how to figure out how to improve your credit, how to do all of this. And that's why, when I got out of the military, I was like 80 grand in debt at one point. Life freaking hit me hard. It was not greener on the other side, I promise you. So understanding that, hey, I'm in a low place. I need to figure out how to get out of it. And I have those conversations every single day with veterans as well. It's because, look, for a lot of you, I know, like, they always focus on veterans that can't get into homes. But I know for some of you that are watching this, it's not that much that you don't want to, it's that you can't. And you need to figure out how to get there. And I can have that conversation too. You can always reach out to me. This video will always be here. This number will be active. You can reach out to me. We can have that conversation to figure out how can we get you from here to here to be able to get into that home and kind of get that life started. Actually, also, and the last thing I want to do before I get into the process of, like, you're buying a home, I'm going to give you a little story. So when I bought my first piece of real estate, when I was stationed here in Miramar, it wasn't even my primary residence. I know. Now, I got lucky. My wife living with the mother-in-law, I got lower rent than I would have paid elsewhere. Okay, it helped. It was just me, my wife, living in a room in her mom's house. Hey, I have no shame, right? It got me to experience a lot more things by saving that little bit of money. Okay, so I was lucky in that respect. Some of you aren't. But then some of you can afford to pay that rent because you're splitting it with someone else, or maybe you and your spouse both work. But you're like, I don't know if I want to buy a home in San Diego, but I know I want to build wealth. My first piece of real estate I ever purchased in my life was in Arizona. It wasn't even in San Diego. So 3 hours east, you have a place called Yuma. And for Marines who are in the airway or maybe grunts, like, you understand, you go there and the place is just dry and hot. It's miserable. So we went there and we figured out, like, hey, we're going to buy a townhome. Bought that townhome. And that was the first piece of real estate I ever bought. Soon after that, the next year after that, I bought my first single family home in San Diego, which was 2000. And I bought that home in 2017. That one was in 2018. I bought my first actual home in San Diego and learned a lot in the process for sure. Like I said, that's a whole nother story to get into as well later in this video. But that first home in Yuma, not only do we make about a couple hundred per month in rent, it was an Airbnb when we started it. When we sold it 3 years later, I ended up, after taxes and fees of selling it, walked away with $50,000, right? Remember that 80 grand in debt story I told you? Yeah, that paid for almost all of it, and the rest was just working hard to pay it off. Okay, that's what real estate can do. And while I'm not saying you have to start investing and do all this crazy stuff, it's the simple matter of, like, that is a real story of what I went through, and that's why I try and translate to everyone and all veterans is like, look, and also, now that was an investment property, but when you buy your primary residence, there are also certain tax benefits you can get. Now, you have to talk to a CPA, always reference to talk to someone, but the time that I did it, I was able to actually not have to do a lot of taxes that you normally would have because I technically did live in that property for a period of time and we were able to work out a situation where that was okay to get through. But that's what's so important when you buy real estate, you buy it smartly and you have a long-term plan. I don't care if you're staying in for 20, you're getting out after 4 or 5, like make sure you have a plan when you get into that piece of real estate, because it really can benefit you. It can change a lot. It might not seem like that in the short term. Everyone wants to look at like, well, what am I paying monthly? But I promise you, with the right decision later on in life, like you will thank yourself for it. Now, getting into it, you want to buy a home, you want to start the process. What do you do? What's the first step? The first step, what can you even afford, right? You want to buy, you want to do it. What can you afford? And the biggest thing is like, hey, where's your credit at? Where's your debt at? What payments are you making every month? Like car payments, right? Like what's your BAH going to be when you get here? How's your financial situation look? Does your spouse also work? Or are they giving up their job when they move here? Are they going to find something in the same field? All that plays into it. And you can kind of figure out some things on your own. But really the next step is you have to reach out to like me and the team, and we can sit down with our lender on our team, and we can sit down and run through all the numbers. We can give you an idea, like, do you have to pull your credit right away? Absolutely not. Like I said, even if you're in debt and you want to buy in a year, we have those conversations as well. And I have one later today, actually, at the time of recording this video, is look, you sit down, we figure out what you can afford. Like, hey, you can afford this much. It's like, okay, that's what I can afford. What do I want to afford? And we have that conversation, we figure it out. Once we dial in exactly what you're looking for in a home, got to start looking at neighborhoods, right? Where are you getting stationed? Pendleton, 32nd Street, Miramar, where are you getting stationed, right? Because I tell you, drive times in San Diego, miserable, right? It's absolutely miserable. And some people are like, Cameron, I need a 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage. And it's like, okay, where are you living? And it's like, oh, I want to live right next to base. Okay, your budget's like, $500,000. Not gonna happen. You know what I mean? You're not gonna get a house with those requirements, right? But hey, are you willing to drive an hour and a half to and from work? Some are. And they go all the way up to Temecula. They can get more house for their budget. Now, if you're stationed in Pendleton, Temecula is not as bad. But if you're stationed in Coronado, Miramar, or anywhere else, it can be a drive every single day and a huge pain in the butt. Not to mention gas prices, right? It's California, not cheap. So choosing the right neighborhood and where you can live is so important. Like I said, I have a video I'll link up above, which is like, where do you live if you're military in San Diego? That's just a basic overview video of areas where you can consider. I go through a map and all that stuff and what you can do. Now, choosing that location is so important because you might have to change what kind of home or condo or townhome you're getting into based off of where you're stationed, because that drive time can be miserable. Even when I was stationed in Miramar driving to San Marcos, oh my God, there were days if there was like 1 or 2 accidents, game over. It'd take me 2 hours to get home during peak rush hour. Awful. Bumper to bumper the entire way in the 15. Miserable. That's why it's so important that you kind of figure out your budget and how close you want to be. Not to mention, if you have kids, school. Where are they going to school? If you have kids and you're going to be using on-base daycare, that's great. But guess what? It's always a waiting list to get into on-base daycare. So you're probably going to be looking out in town to get daycare if you need it. It's a mess, and all these things play into it. But choosing that neighborhood and location based on budget and your needs is so important. That's the first step to go from there. Now, obviously, working through your numbers, choosing where you can live and where you want to live based on your needs. The next thing is obviously you're finding an agent who has your needs in mind. Obviously, I'm a real estate agent. I run a team here, but I totally understand I'm not for everyone. That's okay. But finding someone who understands what you're going through. Now, I mentioned my little first home story. Now, so I'm going to tell it to you. Finding an agent that knows what they're doing but understands your needs as a veteran is so important. Every agent says they work with veterans. Me, I don't just work with veterans, but it's something I'm very passionate about, especially when it comes to San Diego, because it is so hard and so many people want to take advantage of you. Even if they mean well, they might not. Like, there's so much. It's not just knowing the VA loan. They got to know freaking real estate in San Diego. So the first home I bought was in San Marcos. We looked everywhere. We were getting beat out. This is 2018, so it wasn't as crazy as it was in 2020 and 21. But we were still getting overpriced on multiple houses. We find a house big. I love this. Someone would come in 50 grand over cash. I was like, what the heck? Our budget was only like 520,000. It wasn't even crazy, right? And we were just like, oh my God, trying to find a home. We were even looking at mobile homes. By the way, I don't recommend that. A lot of reasons why. You can reach out if you want to know why. I don't recommend mobile homes, or you can comment below. Just no. Now, we get into the home, right? We finally get a house. We get accepted. It's all everything works out, we thought. We move into the home. We didn't really think about it. My wife's even born and raised here, but we didn't even think about it. As we get into the home, and it's right next to a school. It's during the summer. Parking's fine. All of a sudden, September hits. Every morning and afternoon, good luck getting in my driveway. I've had to yell at people to get out of my driveway because they were just parking inside the driveway. And I'm like, yo, like, get out of my driveway. I just got home from work. I want to park. Insane. But I went through that so many times I can't even imagine. I was backed up to, and across the street was mobile home parks. Guess what? Those people are inclined to save money. They're renting rooms out, but those people need to park across the street. So my house was always parked in front of my street, main street. And that's not even worst of it. All of a sudden, rainy season hits in San Diego, right? December, January. Next thing I know, I'm like stepping on a waterbed in my house. Okay. I'm walking across these floorboards. The water had flown up under the board of my house. And guess what? Turns out it wasn't fresh water. Yeah. Let your mind wander where that went to. So I had sewage water backing up into my house. Needless to say, insurance got called. All the flooring in my home got ripped up. It was just a disaster. I'm like living in Airbnbs. We're living in the living room while the house is getting worked on. It's a disaster. I got our first child, barely a year old. Like, it is just, my wife is stressed out. I'm stressed out. I'm having to work at the same time, figure all this out. Obviously, no one freaking cares what you're going through at the time, right? You just got to push through it. Complete mess. Come to find out, not only did we have a break in the sewage line, what should have happened, it should have backed up into the toilets and the tubs. But we had a cracked sewage for the piping for the house, which caused the water when it backed up to leak into the house. The second thing that was wrong was the main sewage line for the street in my house. The palm trees in front of the house had just destroyed this cast iron sewage piping. If you know cast iron sewage, you know where I'm going with this. But in San Diego, homes that were built before 1970, it's common to have cast iron piping. And it's not meant to last a long time. It's not that plastic PVC we have nowadays. So tree roots and just natural wear and tear just break it down. So I had to spend $4,000 to get water jetting to clear those roots. And my wife was so stressed out with the house, we chose to sell it just to move out. The parking, we had random people taking pictures of our house. Mobile home people hated us so much, they were like complaining about the front yard fence we installed, like a whole mess of problems, right? It's not a good location at all. And we sold it, barely broke even. In actuality, because of the water jetting and all that stuff, I lost thousands of dollars owning that house. It was a mess. I had paid $10,000 to get AC installed. Like, it's just a complete and utter disaster. And that's what I got into. And come to find out, now that I'm an agent, I've been doing this for years, is if a home's older, you should get the sewage inspected. I gladly would have paid a couple $100s to pay for a sewer inspection and not bought that house. But I was never informed that. I was just like, hey, here's a house, here's a house, here's a house. Get in your house, get in your house, get in your house. You're a veteran. Yeah, like, yo, VA loan, it's hard to get. No one's going to want to buy it. It got shoved in that house, right? Heck no. First off, the fact that people think that you can't get a house with a VA loan because no one likes it. No. Does it exist? Absolutely. But that is so untrue. If a house is bad, it's bad. I don't care if you're using a VA loan or not. Do not just get into a house and not do your job to get it inspected without doing it. My inspection report when I got that house from the agent's recommendation was like a page and a half. The inspectors I use now, they're also fellow veterans, but know what the heck they're doing. Their inspection report will be like 6 pages long. I don't care if it's a brand new house or an old one. It'll be long as heck because you gotta tear the house apart. You can't just assume everything's gonna be okay. And that's what's so important when you get into it, and make sure that you choose an agent and team of people who know what they're doing and they have your back and honestly, ones that have life experiences. I've had bad tenants in rental properties. I've had situations like that I've struggled with. I've bought a condo and flipped it in Bonzo while living in it at the same time. I've done a lot in San Diego, and I promise you, like, finding the right person who has your back is so important. Now, that set aside, next step is your touring homes. Now, this can go a lot of different ways. Sometimes I have veterans who are living on the ship, if they're in the Navy or in the barracks, and they're like, hey, my wife is coming, I need to get a house. That's cool. You're here. Great. But if you're coming from, let's say, East Coast or Hawaii, and you're coming to San Diego PCSing, and you need to get a home before you get here, that's okay. I'll FaceTime you. I'll Zoom you with my phone, and when we go through homes, I'm telling you, we will go through, I'll list everything that's wrong. Even the house, honestly, isn't that bad. I'll be like, oh, look, there's chip paint there. Hey, I'm scared about this toilet. It has like stains around it. Everything can be wrong. And it might seem scary doing virtual tours, right? Shopping for a home if you're in that situation. I do it every single day. It's okay. It's just, we have a conversation about how that process goes, how it works, and the kind of, all of that, right? It's not easy, but it's completely doable. I've bought homes without seeing them. I've in the process of building a home without fully seeing it every day, right? Trust me, if I'm okay with it, that's why I'm okay with recommending it, because I do it every single day, and it's okay. It's stressful, but I promise you, with the right plan and team of people, you can do it. But even if you need to wait until you get here, that's okay. That works too. But touring homes and like narrowing down the right one is so important. Obviously, from there, you're making offers on home. Right now, at the time of recording this video in San Diego, it's a weird market. It's kind of neutral, right? Prices are still expensive. Rates are around 5.5%, 6%. It's a weird market. So you're probably going to take you about 30 days to get into a home. That's what I say for most people. About 30 days of at least seeing homes every single weekend, maybe a couple times during the week. About 30 days, you'll get an offer accepted. We'll get into that home and move through that inspections and all that craziness that comes with the final process, which is chaos, but it's leading you towards that promised land. To be like, you're vetting everything. You're like, hey, like, is there an HOA? Is the HOA okay? You know, how are my finances? Does this home have any hidden problems? Like, we're doing all of that during that process. And from there, it's scheduling, getting to San Diego. Now, this is like the reason I breezed through the offer and all that stuff is that is so subjective with what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what the current market is at the time you go to do the home. So that changes with every specific situation. And I can't give general knowledge of that because honestly, like I can't give you good advice and recommendations as a professional until I feel out your situation, what you can afford, where are we looking, because it changes so much with how the offers are written and everything in between. But lining up when you're coming here, when you're shopping for a home is important. I'm talking with a veteran today. He has another year until he gets to San Diego, but we're creating that plan now because orders might change, or even if they don't change, he wants to know, hey, I am ready to go. My plan is in place. I have a general idea of what I can afford and what I can do to increase that before I move here. And then that way, like several months, my recommendation, if you have your day, you have to show up in your new unit. If you have the time, a couple months beforehand, at least 2 months before you're set to arrive here, you should start shopping and figuring things out. Now, that being said, I also see situations where veterans begin this process and they finish it when they get here because they know when they get here, the unit's going to give them 10 days, which you should rate, to shop for a home. So if that's what you need when you get here, that's okay. I see that too, and that perfectly works great. I've also seen units that try and push back on that. And if that's the case, we'll work through it. I'll give you recommendations. We have connections with other units too. Like you should be getting, when you get here, especially if you have a family, you need time to shop for a place to live. They can't deny you that fact. You're not living in your car. Trust me, I've been in the military. I get how crazy higher ups can be. But that's the most important thing, is lining up when you need to be in your unit, when you want to be in your home. Because it's not just as simple as like, hey, I want to buy a home. A couple weeks from now, I'm in a house. No, it's a couple month process, right? Even when you get into a home, the average time to close is 21 to 30 days. It could be even as much as 45 days if you're allowing the seller to stay there for a little bit. So make sure you give yourself time. Now, that being said, I have absolutely done last minute things where we're working every single day to find a home, looking off market, looking what's on market. And we are just stressing things out for like a couple weeks straight to get an offer accepted to get you into a home. Again, that 21 to 45 day period still applies, but if the chaos is up front, we can negotiate things. Sometimes if the home is vacant, you can negotiate to get into the home a couple weeks sooner, even though you haven't owned it yet. So you're kind of like renting it back kind of thing. So there's a lot of ways that you can fluctuate if you're on a last minute schedule. That's okay. But that being said, like making sure you line up your plan for when you're going to move is so important. And you want to make sure you're not like just getting all caught in the weeds and doing things last minute, because it could nip you in the butt. All right, summarizing everything up, you're PCSing to San Diego. What do? First thing, you got to reach out and talk to a lender. You got to figure out what can I afford if I do this, right? And then when you have those conversations, especially with our team, you can sit down, you can figure out, all right, here's what I can afford if I buy. Here's what the rent is for what I want to buy. And you compare both options. Base housing, it's always there, right? Wait list, they take all your BAH because, they apparently want you to be broke. Gotta love the military. And you kind of can weigh those options to figure it out. Boom, you want to buy a house. Next step, you're reaching out and you're talking to a team of agents and figuring out where you can live, what fits your budget. Finding an agent that knows what they're doing, understands the VA loan, and doesn't give you some lies. I have no idea how many lies I hear from veterans every single day. Like I just had another one this past weekend who they thought they only can use a VA loan once. No, that's a complete lie. You can use your VA loan as many times as you want. Like, get out of here. Technically, you can even own 2 homes that are under a VA loan. Reach out if you want to know more about that. It's kind of a lot that goes into it and a lot of chaos. You probably can't buy a full home in another one. It's like could be a home and a condo, but reach out if you want to have more conversations on how that could happen, because it is something that can be done under certain circumstances. But reach out, find that agent, start looking at what neighborhoods, where you want to live, where could you live, just kind of figuring all those information. From there, you're looking for homes. You're doing them virtually. You're waiting until you're on your house hunting leave. You're starting the process and finishing it here. Whatever you have to do, you figure it out and we make it happen. From there, you got your offer accepted. You're getting into a house. You're digging through what is wrong with these houses in San Diego. Most likely for many of you, you're going to be kidding here. Homes in San Diego are going to be older. You're going to see, like, I got a veteran into a multifamily home last year. It was built in 1930. And I promise you, they paid probably $1,100 in inspection fees between engineering, all kinds of stuff, right? It's built in 1930. You got to make sure this home is solid. By the end of it, that home was built so well, it hasn't moved an inch on the foundation, right? Modern homes can't even say that. So don't let the year of the home confuse you and like scare you. But yes, homes in San Diego, most of the time for most military veterans and their budgets, it's going to be a little older than you're probably used to. So be aware of that. And from there, you're lining up closing on that home and getting into the home. And you're lining up your move and everything else, and it's stressful. Also, if you own a piece of real estate, wherever you're coming from, this is a tip I didn't mention before. Are you renting it? Are you selling it? If you are selling it, I have connections. I don't care where you're stationed. I have connections with agents there because I make sure I have that network built, because it happens all the time. And if you're renting it, I can even teach you how to manage it yourself to save money on that 15+% management fee that most areas will charge for property management. I can teach you how to do that. I have connections with people that can run you through and teach you how to do it. So that's also important before you move here, is if you have something you're dealing with on the back end, like a piece of real estate, what are you doing with it to come here? If you have a VA loan on that property, you might have to refinance out to use your VA loan here. And there's a whole number of situations that could apply to this. So making sure you figure it out before you get here is so important. But I hope you got value in this video. I hope it gave you some insights. If you are looking to take that next step, create that plan, or you just don't even know what to do next in your process of PCSing here, this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me and the team. Call, text, email, or if you want to jump to the head of the line, go ahead. That Calendly link down below goes directly to my calendar, and we can meet one-on-one to kind of figure out your plan, what's going on, and how I can help you and serve you. So hope you have value in the video. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.